Welcome back to a Book a Day podcast. Previously, we were discussing this book called Art as Therapy. And in that, we saw how art can be used as a tool to heal ourselves, as a medium to have a therapeutic experience. That's what we covered in the previous episode. Today, I want to cover the next chapter, which talks about love and how art can teach us about love. The chapter begins with the simple dichotomy of love. That is, on one side, love is a pleasurable experience. It gives us so much happiness, but at the same time, it causes a lot of hurt. So those are two sides of it. And the question is there anything that we can learn from art to enhance our experience, to improve our experience of love? In fact, is there anything to learn about love? That's the first question. And then we can go to art, if art has the answer or not to that question. But the question is, the first one is there anything that we can love, that we can learn about love? And is there any chance that we can get better at it? So the romantic answer to that question is pretty much no. And the romantics kind of idealize this form of love, the romantic love, where they think that love just somehow strikes us in middle of nowhere and we don't have to work for it. It's something like magic. It happens and happens on its own, and suddenly everything feels perfect, beautiful. That's not really the classical answer, and that's also not the answer that this book provides. It goes the other way. It tells us that yes, there is plenty to learn about love. It's not something that happens to us. It's a skill that we can cultivate, we can work on, and gradually we can get better at it. So now, coming to the question of art, and to demonstrate the therapeutic qualities of art with respect to love, we can think of, in this sense, art as a tool, as a medium for us through which we can learn about love. And when we talk about love, it doesn't necessarily have to be about romantic love. It's about the way we love anything, our relationship with anything, whether it's love with other human beings in terms of relationships, but it could be about love for nature or love for work. And the idea here is that we need to prepare our minds, we need to sensitize our minds in order to become better lovers. But when we talk about better lovers, what does that really mean? What is it like to be a good lover? And the book gives us some ideas. When we are in a initial phase of our relationships, and I'm talking about romantic relationships here, so often we mistake our admiration for love. But knowing someone how to love is quite different from admiring them. Because admiration, it asks very little of us. And we don't have to do anything. But when we want to have a shared life with somebody, which might include a home, children, or let's say running of a household, then the challenges are very different. So first of all, appreciating something, admiring something or somebody is very different from loving someone. So that's the first thing we should learn. And then we go on to discover certain qualities that are mentioned in this book, that we need to acquire those qualities in order to become better lovers or even good lovers. What are those qualities? The first one is attention to detail. And when I'll talk about these qualities, I'll also make comparisons with the art, works of art, how art in general teaches us these qualities. So, talking about this particular quality, that is attention to detail, you can notice that when you observe a work of art. Because a lot of times we use this phrase in art that a particular work of art was made with love. And what does that mean? It means when the artist created it, he or she paid a lot of attention to the detail. They focused on it, they gave all their attention to it. And that's really what a lover demands. We also expect this kind of behavior, this kind of quality from the other person who we are in love with. We really long to find a person who will be as attentive to the details of our characters, to the movement of our bodies, or to the quirks of our understandings, as an artist is to the work of art. It really makes us happy and somebody gives us that level of attention to the detail, without judgment, without anything, purely from the point of view of understanding, from the point of view of attention. The second quality is patience, is perhaps I feel the most important one. And that's also a quality that you find in great works of art, because they really require a lot of patience. An artist works on it, then stays patient, stays with it for a long, long time. You can see that in visual arts where every layer, every detail demands attention and patience. And that's pretty much the same when it comes to love. Because let's face it, life is never going to be perfect. You're never going to meet a perfect human being. And there will be countless moments when your lover will test your patience. And in that moment, if you are going to be patient, it's such a valuable, such a precious quality to have. And same goes if the tables were turned. If you were reacting to something and your lover was being patient, what better can you expect? So patience, it's an admirable quality. And if you have patience, you can really love deeply. You can love them despite their flaws, despite the troubles that come with it, despite all the times when they trigger you. The patience are really going to help you. The third quality that is mentioned in the book is curiosity. And it is one quality that is very central to most of the art. An artist has to be curious. And at the same time, when you look at a work of art, it also makes you curious. It makes you see new things in the same world. It gives you fresh eyes to look at the same objects. And once again, in a lover, it's a wonderful quality to have. What a delightful experience it would be if you had a lover who looked at you with a curious gaze, who had the curiosity not just for you but for the world. Because a lot of times what happens in long-term relationships is that curiosity, after a while, it just dies down. Because everything becomes familiar to us, the other person, our habits, our lifestyles. So how do we bring curiosity in that situation. And that's where art helps. As I said earlier, art gives us fresh eyes, and through art we can look at the same world with new eyes, with renewed sense of curiosity. And that's something art also does. When you read a book or listen to a piece of music or see a visual art, it might give you a perspective of your own self or your about your partner or your relationship, and you might have missed it completely. But art allows you to see it and see it with curiosity. So that excitement, that curiosity, it remains, and it's a wonderful quality to have. The next quality is that of resilience. And I'm sure you would agree with that. We need a lot of resilience in us if we are supposed to become good lovers. In this book, they talk about this children's short story called The Tiger Who Came at Tea. So what happens in this short story is there's a tiger who turns up for a tea with a girl called Sophie, and she's accompanied by her mother who's quite old. And when the tiger comes, instead of reacting or panicking, they just let the tiger come. They are quite open about it, embracing the new visitor, and they feed the tiger. And eventually what happens is they run out of food, and Sophie's father, who's supposed to come back from work, there's no food left for him. So eventually what the family does is they feed all the food, as I said, to the tiger, and they themselves go out for dinner. So this story is a really simple one. It tells us about resilience, that bad things can happen, surprising things can happen, but that's not the end of the world. Solutions can be found everywhere. We just need to accommodate the difficulties. That does not mean we need to pet the tigers and just welcome the tigers in our lives. It's just a story. It's a story to remind us that things can happen, surprising things can come in our lives. Let's just embrace them. And let's not give up. And it's particularly helpful in long-term relationships where two people are living together, where little things might start bothering them, whether it's the haircuts, it's the kitchen table, it's the towel, it's small things. And you need to remind yourself that you're supposed to be resilient. You need to find that strength within you. Then the another quality that I'm sure you would agree is that of sensuality. What is sensuality really? In simple words, it is some kind of unembarrassed enjoyment of touch and movement. We can take pleasure through our senses. That's all. And art is clearly very good at it. What art does is it sensitizes us through its impact on different senses. And once we are sensitized, we are more open to receive those sensory pleasures. A lot of times what happens is in our society, and especially in long-term relationships, people don't embrace that sensuality. If they're having a conversation, they're not holding hands, they're not embracing each other, they're not embracing the sensuality of it. But the book tells us that we must work on it, that we should be playful and embrace the sensual aspect of a relationship, of love. That really adds so much value to it, and it's a great quality to have. Then another quality that the book mentions, and which might surprise some of you, is that of reason. It's because a lot of times we think of love as a feeling, and as if it has got nothing to do with reason or that faculty of our mind. But that's not true. It says if we are to consider love as a form of skill, as some kind of quality that we can develop and work on, we have to understand that having reason on our side, having intelligence on our side as a quality is really going to help us. And you might have seen that for example, when you read novels and when you focus on a certain character's actions, why did he or she do that? Why did he or she make a particular choice? Or why did they behave in a certain way? You always tend to think of reasons. You try to connect the dots. We do that in art. If we can take that quality and apply it in our relationships, in our lives, it is really going to help us. So similarly, if the person that you love, if you can think of reason, if you're looking for reasons why they behave in a certain way and not just take it emotionally, if you think about the reasons why they are upset, maybe they haven't had good food, they haven't had good sleep. So if you think along those lines, it's going to add so much value and it's really going to help you as a lover. Then there is another interesting quality, which is that of perspective. And you would have noticed that a lot of us are generally very rigid when it comes to our perspectives. For sure, all of us, each one of us rather, we have our own limited perspective. And we are quite defensive about it often. But through art, we can see that there are different perspectives available. And we can see at the same events through different perspectives. That is what art allows us to do. We can also hear different perspectives from other people. But as I said, we generally get defensive in those sort of encounters and we might not be open to that kind of learning. In that sense, through art, we can take that inspiration and understand that there can be different perspectives and we can have a different one. Our partner can have a different one. And probably both are as valid, rather equally valid. And if there is another third or fourth perspective, that might also be valid. So we must be open to these new perspectives, and that is where art can really help us. And finally, this chapter discusses probably the most important question that one can ask in love. That is there a way that we can make love last? Because a lot of times, under the burden of complacency or habit, love somehow fades away and just disappears somewhere. How do we make sure that it lasts? Well, first of all, if we are to consider, as I said in the beginning, that love is not just a feeling, it's a quality, it's a skill that we need to constantly work on, then you're already halfway there. Because if you're willing to work on it consistently, then you're not going to rely on your feelings, you are going to rely on your actions. So that's pretty much the kind of attitude you need to have. But specifically, the way art can help us in this case is about through art, we can notice and locate the good and the beautiful underneath all these burdened layers of the habit and routine, just like the artist does it. What the artists do, they look at a scene, let's say there's a landscape in front of them, and they don't copy all of it. They look for the detail, they look for the valuable things in it, and then they preserve those valuable things in art. And that's exactly we need to do. When we think we are struggling under this burden of habit and routine, and we are not able to appreciate the other person as much as we used to in the past, we just need to have that gaze of the artist and just need to locate the good, the beautiful, the valuable in that person and remind ourselves of those qualities. It's okay, it's not going to be easy task, and that's where you're going to need inspiration from art, and it will for sure help you. But that's the way you can learn it, that's the way you can get better at it. So that was the chapter on love from the book called Art as Therapy. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm sure you would have learned a thing or two about becoming a better lover through art. Thank you very much for listening. I'll catch you the next time.